Chapter 5. After the Storm. On the fourth morning, there was a queer feeling in Laura's ears. She peered from the quilts and saw snowdrifts over the bed. She heard the little crash of the stove lid and then the first crackling of the fire. Then she knew why her ears felt empty. The noise of the blizzard had stopped. "Wake up, Mary," she sang out, poking Mary with her elbow. "The blizzard is over." She jumped out of the warm bed into the cooler, cold-than-ice air. The hot stove seemed to give out no heat at all. The pail of water had almost frozen solid, but the frosted windows were glowing with sunshine. "It's as cold as ever outside," Pa said when he came in. He bent over the stove to thaw the icicles from his mustache. They sizzled on the stovetop and went up in steam. Pa wiped his mustache and went on. The winds tore a big piece of tar paper off the roof, tight as it was nailed on. No wonder the roof leaked rain and snow. "Anyway, it's over," Laura said. It was pleasant to be eating breakfast and to see all the yellow glowing window panes. "We'll have an Indian summer yet," Ma was sure. "This storm was so early, it can't be the beginning of winter. I never knew a winter to set in so early. But I don't like the feeling of things." "What things, Charles?" Ma wanted to know. Pa couldn't say exactly. "There's something just odd. There's some stray cattle by our haystacks." "Are they tearing down the hay?" Ma said quickly. "No," said Pa. "Then what is it? If they aren't doing any harm," Ma said, "I guess they're tired out by the storm," said Pa. "They took shelter there by the haystacks. I thought I'd let them rest and eat a little before I drove them off. I can't afford to let them tear down the stacks, but they could eat a little without doing any harm. But they aren't eating." "What's wrong then?" "Nothing," said Pa. "They're just standing there." That's nothing to be upset about," said Ma. "No," said Pa. He drank his coffee. "Well, I might as well go drive them off." He put on his coat and cap and mittens again and went out. After a moment, Ma said, "You might as well go with him, Laura. He may need some help to drive away the cows from the hay." Quickly, Laura put Ma's big shawl over her head and pinned it snugly under her chin with the shawl pin. The woolen folds covered her from head to foot. Even her hands were under the shawl. Only her face was out. Outdoors, the sun glistened. It hurt her eyes. She breathed a deep breath of tingling cold. Her eyes were squinted as she looked around. The sky was huely blue, and all of the land was blowing white. The straight, strong wind did not lift the snow, but drove it scurrying across the prairie. The cold stung Laura's cheeks. It burned her nose and tingled in her chest and came out as steam of air. She held the folds of the shawl across her mouth and breathed and made frost on it. When she passed the corner of the stable, she saw Pa going ahead of her, and she saw the cattle. She stood and stared. The cattle were standing in sunshine, shadowed by the haystack. Red and brown and spotted cattle, one thin black one. They stood perfectly still, every head bowed down to the ground. The hairy red necks and brown necks all stretched down from the bony gaunts of their shoulders to monstrous, swollen, white heads. "Pa!" Laura screamed. Pa motioned to her to stay where she was. He went on trudging through the low, flying snow towards those creatures. They did not seem like real cattle. They stood so terribly still. In the whole herd there was not one that moved. Only their breathing sucked in the hairy sides between the ribs and their bones and pushed them out again. Their hip bones and shoulder bones stood up sharply. Their legs were braced out stiff and still, and where their heads should be, swollen white lumps seemed fast to the ground under the blowing snow. On Laura's head, the hair prickled up in horror, and it went down her backbone. Tears from the sun and the wind swelled out of her staring eyes and ran cold on her cheeks. Pa went on slowly against the wind. He walked up to the herd. Not one of the cattle moved. For a moment, Pa stood looking. Then he stomped quickly. Laura heard a bellow, and a red steer back humped and jumped. The red steer ran and gathering and bawling. It was an ordinary herd with eyes and nose and a mouth, bawling out steam in the wind. Another one bellowed and ran and staggering run. Then another. Pa was doing the same thing to them all, one by one. Their bawling rose up to the cold sky. At last they all drifted away together. They went silently now on the knee-deep spray of blowing snow. Pa waved to Laura to go back to the shanty while he inspected the haystacks. "Whatever kept you so long, Laura?" Ma asked. "Did the cattle get into the haystack?" "No, Ma," she said. "Their heads were, I guess they were frozen to the ground." "That can't be," Ma exclaimed. "It must be one of the queerest things Laura had ever seen." Mary said, busily knitting in her chair by the stove, "How could cattle's heads freeze to the ground, Laura? It's really worrying the way you talk sometimes." "Well, ask Pa then," Laura said shortly. She was not able to tell Ma and Mary what she felt. She felt somehow in the wild night, the storms and stillness, that underneath of all sounds on the prairie had seized the cattle. When Pa came in, Ma asked him what was wrong with the cattle. "Their heads were frozen over with ice and snow," said Pa. "Their breath froze over their eyes and their noses till they could see no more, and nor could they breathe." Laura stopped sweeping. "Pa, their own breath smothered them?" she said in horror. Pa understood how she felt. "They're all right now, Laura. I broke the ice off their heads. They're breathing now, and I guess they'll make it to shelter somewhere." Carrie and Mary were wide-eyed, and even Ma looked horrified. She said briskly, "Get your sweeping done, Laura. And Charles, for pity's sake, why don't you take off your wraps and warm yourself?" "I got something to show you," Pa said. He took his hand carefully out of his pocket. "Look here, girls. Look what I found in the haystack." Slowly he opened his hand. In the hollow of the mittens sat a little bird. He put it gently in Mary's hands. "Why, it's standing straight up," Mary exclaimed, touching it lightly with her fingers. They had never seen a bird like it. It was small, but looked exactly like the picture of the great auk in Pa's big green book, The Wonders of the Animal World. It had the same white breast and black back and wings, the same short legs placed far back, and the same large webbed feet. It stood straight on its short legs and like a tiny little man with black coat and trousers. "What is it, Pa? Oh, what is it?" Carrie cried with delight, and she held Grace's eager little hands. "Mustn't touch, Grace." "I never saw anything like it," said Pa. "It must have tried to outwind the storm and dropped down, struck against the haystack. It crawled in the hay for shelter." It's a full grown, isn't it? Ma said, looking at the feathers. Yes, it's full grown, whatever it is, Pa agreed. The little bird stood straight on Mary's soft palm and looked to them. Got a hair right here. Looked to them with the bright black eyes. I've never seen humans before, said Pa. How do you know, Pa? Mary said. Because it isn't afraid of us, Pa said. Oh, can we keep it, Pa? Can't we, Ma? Carrie begged. Well, that depends, Ma said. Mary's fingers touched the little bird all over while Laura told her how white its smooth breast and how very black its back and tail and little wings. Then they let Grace carefully touch it. The little auk sat still and looked at them. They sat on the floor and it walked a little ways. Then it pushed its webbed feet, tiptoed against the boards, and flapped its little wings. It can't get going, said Pa. It's a water bird. It must start from the water where it can use those webbed feet to get its speed up. Finally, they put it in a box in the corner. It stood there looking up at them with round, bright black eyes, and they wondered what it would eat. That was a queer storm all around, said Pa. I don't like it. Why, Charles, it was only a blizzard, Ma said. We'll likely have a nice warm weather now. It's beginning to warm up a little already. Mary took up her knitting again, and Laura went on sweeping. Pa stood by the window, and after a while, Carrie led Grace away from the little auk, and they looked out too. Oh, look, jackrabbits, Carrie exclaimed. All around the stable, dozens of jackrabbits were hopping. The rascals have been living in our hay all through the storm. I ought to take my gun out and get us some rabbit stew. But he had been standing at the window looking at them without making a move towards his gun. Please let them go, Pa. Just this one time, Mary pleaded. When they came back, because they had to find shelter. Pa looked at Ma, and Ma smiled. We aren't hungry, Charles, and I'm thankful we've got through this storm. Well, I guess I can spare the jackrabbits a little hay, said Pa. He took the water pail and went to the well. The air that came in when he opened the door was very cold, but the sun had already begun to melt the snow on the north side of the shanty.